Welcome to the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the world of real estate investing and wealth creation. This podcast is brought to you by Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation, your trusted, caring, and responsive short-term mortgage lender in Alberta and Ontario. We explore strategic and tactical solutions to elevate your real estate portfolio, drawing insights from seasoned Canadian investors and trusted advisors. In each episode, we dive into various aspects of real estate investing, including market trends, property analysis, financing strategies, risk management, and much more. Whether you're a seasoned real estate investor looking to expand your portfolio or a beginner taking those first steps, this podcast is for you. Perfect. So super excited for today's guests. We got Robert and Jeremy from Bōde. Guys, tell us what you have on the go.
Yeah, great to be here, guys. Robert Price, founder and CEO of Bōde. We are an online platform for buying and selling property, really with the aim of modernizing real estate transactions across Canada and looking to do that south of the border here as well. And Jeremy is a close colleague of mine. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, thanks for the invite, guys. Appreciate it. Jeremy Smith, EVP of Enterprise Services. I oversee the units at Bōde that touch data, client management, and the builder community and partnerships that we have at Bōde.
Awesome. Perfect.
So online platform to buy and sell real estate. Let's dig into how that differs from traditional and kind of why Bōde, what your clients are loving about you. Multifold question.
Yeah, well, I guess it started with myself and three other founders when, at least in my own case, I was just looking at how real estate is bought and sold now back in 2017, selling my own property and then looking at buying my next one and looking for the online data enhanced, easy solution to do that. And what I found was that didn't exist, of course, and then ended up going through my own experience of hiring an agent, a good friend of mine, and going through that whole, what I would describe as analog experience with a lot of issues and a lot of expense at the end, and wanted to have a different option where we could bring to the market the ability to simply control that experience for both buyers and sellers in a really intuitive way, in the same way that we've all become attuned to, traveling, Airbnb, all of the online banking options. We really live our lives through our smartphones. So can we deliver a similar experience, not only for homeowners, but also for builders and investors and agents, ultimately, with the aim of making it easier for everybody and modernizing a transaction that is much more efficient and ultimately much more cost effective at the end of the day for whoever decides to work with the platform. So that was the original vision. Fast forward 3.5, 4 years, we've done almost $1 billion in sales. That's over 1,500 transactions, working with all of those stakeholders I mentioned, working with agents all the time, of course. We're working with some of the largest home builders in Canada, as well as individual investors, property owners, people that are flipping property, and then your kind of run-of-the-mill individuals that have their own home to manage and sell. So that was the original aim, is to bring a tech-enabled experience across the key stakeholders in the market. And it's been a lot of fun. We're now venture funded across most of Canada, Alberta, BC, and in the GTA. And as I mentioned earlier, looking for further expansion opportunities within Canada and then ultimately the US as well.
Awesome. Jeremy, anything to add to that? I know you're coming in from a newer lens, and I love your insight. So anything to add to what Robert gave us?
Yeah, I think Rob touched on the majority of what we do. What I'll say is at the core principle and the core efficacy, I think, of what we do is we eliminate friction. We don't necessitate change wholesale necessarily to engage and benefit from using an online platform like Bōde's, but what we do is we unlock your ability to make changes incrementally in your business. If you're a developer, we provide a tremendous amount of support to the realtor and broker community. If they have high volume, we saddle some of that admin burden from them so that they're able to, again, add some caliber to what they're doing there. And from a transactional standpoint, it really is about the elimination of the friction. You hail an Uber on your phone, you order food on your phone, you book all your traveling on your phone. And really what we've done is we've just knocked down the traditional barriers for some people and allowing them to just interact through real estate more seamlessly.
Awesome. Perfect. So say I'm a real estate investor. What's the main value proposition or main difference of using Bōde versus typical realtor?
Sure. There are wholesale benefits top to bottom. One of the things that I've seen play out is it opens up the conversation to the entire market. So if you're an investor and you're looking to purchase or you're looking to sell a property, if you go a traditional route, and there's nothing wrong with a traditional route if it makes the most sense for you, but there are segments of the market that don't really want to engage in that platform and in that process. And so they look elsewhere for their opportunities. By partnering with Bōde on a property, if you're an investor looking to sell, you don't eliminate the other half of the market. We work with realtors on a daily basis. We support that structure.
Rob, let's summarize what Jeremy just said.
Yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, as a property investor, that your house inside and out. So you've made strategic investments. You've taken advantage of data to understand what is going to drive the most value, and then you're going to, if you can, find the most cost-effective ways to transact property. And when you're doing that 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 times a year, to the extent with our service, you're saving $15,000 to $20,000. That's a big part of the ROI of transacting a home and the investment that you put in it. And so that's a big part of the value that we bring for an investor that is totally confident in what they have and understand their values really clearly. And we give them all the online mechanisms to sell that property and maximize their profit.
Awesome. And now a lot of realtors at first blush may think that this platform is trying to eliminate them as part of the buying and selling process. Can you shed some light on how we're seeing realtors leverage the platform and how Bōde is working with realtors to enhance the process, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So technically, we are licensed. We just have a different regulatory status for our listing, which is called a mere posting provider. So we don't provide advice. We don't sell. We don't have the humans that sell properties. We provide the data, the contracts, all the mechanisms required to reach agreement. And what we've seen is agents on the sell side, individual agents have sold their own properties with us, which has been really cool to see. Buy side agents, of course, are interacting with us all the time. We have 5,000 agent accounts on platform that are interacting with our sellers on a regular basis. And then when we're working with investors and builders, in many cases, they have internal brokerages where we're able to essentially automate a lot of the listing part of that process, to give them the data and take care of the logistics, photos and measurements, all the listing syndication, all the QR based signage that we have to make that a very low, call it, remove the annoying part of the work, the administrative, repeated, time consuming work, because that's where technology is powerful, and turn them loose to do more sales with less pain in their day, irrespective of kind of where that fits. So we've worked with builders that have internal brokerages, third party broker connections, as well as internal licensed people, because of those efficiency gains ultimately. So in all those different ways, we're quite wide in terms of engagement across the market.
Awesome. And then I'm curious as well on the data side. I feel like you guys have some really good solutions, making it accessible and digestible, which is really important for really anybody transacting. But certain people just aren't leaning into that. Certainly our listeners who are real estate investors, buying and selling properties all the time. That's a key piece of their business, that data. And I'm still shocked as it relates to, there's so many amazing data points out there, yet uh, we're still in the early innings of making residential real estate data accessible and digestible. What are you guys doing current state, and do you guys have anything exciting on the go for future state?
Yeah, great question. So if you're just a simple account holder, somebody with an email address, you can have access to our market data, the sold data, as well as our comparables algorithm that's patent pending. So a multidimensional view of residential values. That's often used by our account holders of all kinds. To gain that confidence, not only if you're looking to buy a property, but of course your own property to sell. And then what we do for our enterprise customers is take that up another notch and look at all the different ways that you can cut information on an investment zone and property type basis, so that you have a real feel of, for new properties, how are they performing in the market, what are the best angles to consider in terms of whether you're buying a lot to throw up a fourplex, or you're looking at row townhomes, whatever property types, in what pricing envelopes make sense. And that's delivered and put together on a monthly basis. So wanting to provide even more, not only historical information, but the intelligence to give you a sense of what to do next. And this is where AI and metadata is extremely exciting, because we're just scratching the surface with what we have today. Everything I just described is regularly used, but the ability to converge complex data sets with artificial intelligence to create super unique and insightful data points is just upcoming on our roadmap. Maybe I'll let Jeremy talk a little bit more about that, because his team will be delivering on it.
Yeah, I would love to hear about that more in detail, just because I know it's been such a hot topic lately, and everyone's always curious now going forward how they can better use data in order to make better informed decisions.
I think I got the gist of what you were looking for. So one of the things that you touched on was the digestibility of the data, and that's really important. And one of the things I think that we do really, really effectively is we supply data in a way that can be used across an entire business. So understanding that everybody within a business, whether it's an enterprise partner of ours or that flipper who's looking to move 20, they have different levels of sophistication necessarily within their operation. They also have different priorities. And what we do is we provide the data in a way that does not require a data scientist or data engineer to read the data. We have a data analyst that we're bringing on to the team here, hopefully by the end of this month, with the goal of expanding out our data offering and continuing to translate that data as efficiently as possible, so that the way I've described it in the past is you look at the data, you don't have to read the data. It's there and it's understandable, it's visualized, and it's compartmentalized in a way that you can get very, very specific, or you can stay 30,000 feet, again, depending on whatever your priority happens to be within whatever organization you live.
Yeah, in Canada, I think we have a big weakness on this front. I think there's a lot of data that's available that's not put together in a way that it's really easily consumable, and that extends to our government and to a variety of stakeholders. So our goal is to pull all that information in the property transaction realm, in the residential domain, and add true sophistication to it, because I think that's just a huge gap that we have in Canada, and it makes our whole home marketplace less efficient, as income is struggling to grow at the speed of inflation. Home affordability is a big challenge, and so how do we make the intelligence available in a totally comprehensive way for the market? That's a true passion of ours, and we know over the next year that's going to change dramatically.
So as it relates to that information, like what are some key things, key insights specifically that are being gleaned currently, and that you hope to glean as you work through this offering within Bōde?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll use an example in Calgary. And something that always bothers me is when the media says it's a hot market or a cold market, and just blanket statement, hot and cold market. Okay, what does that actually mean? Because when you zoom in at the community and property type level, they can be dramatically different within that same market. So let's take apartments in Calgary right now. Apartments in Calgary between $300,000 and $500,000 are the hottest asset in the country, where detached homes are kind of your typical 5 year average. So they are the apartment affordable type property type is really driving the number of transactions. And then you say, well, why is that? Well, we all know about the migration that's happening and coming to Alberta. We know about the home affordability challenges. We know about inflation. Okay, so that gives you the context for why that is. And that's really where our passion is, of breaking this down at the community level and the property type level, so you can say what is actually working in the market versus just kind of staying at that 30,000 foot view, as Jeremy was referencing. And for example, we started this company, Calgary and Edmonton were historically well below their averages of sales, and Toronto was on a 20-year bull run, as was Vancouver. 3 to 4 years later, those markets at a high level have inverted. So, Jeremy, maybe you want to talk about what you're seeing in Toronto as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that becomes most valuable when we talk about the data and sort of those bull and bear markets in real estate is most developers are aware that there is a market. They know it's either a hot market or a cold market. There's if it's a lukewarm market, especially in my backyard in the GTHA, it's a quick one. And I think one of the things that we do for developers is allow them to better understand whether they're inside or outside of the market that they're experiencing generally. So if you're in a super hot market, that is not great news if your competitors are causing that market to be hot. You need to know where you fit in that market. And that's one of the things that we look to do with our data is give them benchmarks and comparables against the market so that they understand, okay, versus our competition. And there is obviously conversations that happen within the industry. So, oftentimes there's an anecdotal understanding, but to be able to look at hard numbers and say, okay, in this market, we're under or overperforming the market, it's good information to have.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think, like real estate is so localized and so specific, yet for the most part, the media and in turn citizens think of it in these broad strokes. But when you're looking at a specific property in a specific neighborhood at a specific price point, the designation of hot and cold can vary considerably. And I'm still very surprised have gone through being a designated appraiser, a mortgage broker, reviewing appraisals and valuations all the time, how little time is spent focusing on the specifics of the purchase, right? Like what is the actual inventory for that specific purchase or sale? Are prices going up based off of that? Are they going down? And very rarely is the consumer being provided that, I'll call it, more micro data, right? We're looking at things a lot more macro, and insights through the data that's out there will provide a lot of value to the purchasing and selling. Like somebody buying a high-end house in Calgary right now, the market is not nearly as hot as, like you just talked about, the more affordable apartments or the more affordable single families, and they should be acting a lot differently as it relates to buying or selling based off of that information. Yet very rarely are we arming the clients with that information. Am I on the right track where you guys hope to go with this?
Yeah, I think one of the things that oftentimes gets lost or maybe isn't always considered is the more the consumer knows about the market, the better it is for the person whether it's, again, an investor who's got multiple units they're looking to sell, or a developer who's looking to put new lots in a greenfield. The more that the consumer knows, the better it is for the person trying to sell that home, because the market will always tell you what it wants. The issue that we have, in the Canadian real estate space, is that there's lagging pressure on your product. If you're a developer, for instance, or even if you're a flipper, if you purchase, 5 homes to flip, and you put a year's worth of renovations into those, by the time those are ready, there's a lagging indicator of what the market's done and what the desire for that property type is. If you're a builder, and in Ontario, it takes you 9 years to get approvals. Well, if you were approving a midtown high rise and now they want townhomes, you're into a high rise. So the more that we can arm consumers with information, it's not about pitting consumer versus seller. It's about providing the equal levels of information and support to both, so that they can talk more seamlessly, and there's less friction, so that the supply is what the demand wants. And right now, I think there's a bit of a break there, and that's why even in a hot market, it's only a hot market if you're talking to a developer or a seller who's successfully moving product. In every market, there are developers who are outperforming or underperforming, and there are sellers who are outperforming and underperforming. So that's what we try to do, is break all of that down and say, this is what's actually happening, and this is how best to leverage what you have available to this market condition.
Yeah, like right now in Toronto, the media cycle is that nobody's investing in new properties. Single families screech to a halt, and there's some data that suggests that. However, for example, we listed a $900,000 property that's a nice detached place, 30 minutes out of downtown Toronto, that sold for 48 hours and $10,000 over list. So that comes back to this: micro markets matter. It's very local, but you need the data updated on a regular basis to better understand exactly what's going on there. And if you look at now Toronto as a whole, in reality, Toronto is in a balanced market condition right now. It just feels, the emotional side of it is, it will feel colder and scarier because you're used to getting 10 offers in the first hour that you're on the market. That's been your reality for so long. Anything less than that feels like the sky's falling. But in reality, it's just now into a 45 to 60 days on market reality, which is the way that a typical balanced market works. So all of, like, taking the emotion out of it and driving the true data discussion, I think, is really important, no matter which stakeholder we're talking about. And that equal access to that information, to Jeremy's point, now creates a convergence or a meeting of minds, because you're working with the same information, as opposed to multiple other people with a bunch of different opinions and extra, call it qualitative noise in the mix.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like in the GTA, well, everybody is susceptible to recency bias, and in the GTA, where for the most part it's been on a 20-year bull run, that recency bias is more of a long-term bias, but it's not reality. It's not a balanced market is more reality when you look at things across the board. So trying to arm them with that info, or providing that information, will help ease the whole process. So that's a good point there.
And how does Bōde backtest all the data to ensure that, it's accurate, it's up to date? Are you able to shed any light in terms of that?
Yeah, we run a highly complex process of, every time we release, we have built-in automated checks to ensure the data is accurate, and then we re-audit it post-release as well. And all that, a lot of the data is coming from our access to the boards, which, as a licensed provider, we're able to provide and receive, and then provide. And then where we're really going, and what we're really excited about, is we have about 750 tracked button clicks, call it actions, on platform. So anytime anybody's taking any action, we're not tracking that individual user per se, but we have that information. So whether it's booking showings or making offers, search criteria, think of all the queries and all the ways that our users are taking advantage of the platform because it is all online as opposed to offline or fragmented or on phone calls or in text messages. uh, Being able to provide that information back is a really exciting next phase for us as well.
So basically, the bulk of the information is pulled from the most reliable true source, which is MLS through the various boards. And then where you guys are building proprietary insights is through how you track all the activities within that. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, exactly. It's a blend, a convergence of those two things, and then it's applying our data experts to structure the information in a way that makes it really useful, as opposed to it being, over there in a big PDF or raw data that requires synthesizing. It's it's put together in a really intuitive way that makes it useful. And for example, looking back 5 to 6 years on a monthly basis to understand what's going on with pricing, inventory, supply makes it way more meaningful than what happened last month. There's huge seasonality in real estate, as everyone on this call knows, and I'm sure our listeners do as well. But what does that mean? January over January over January, going back 3 years. Now you have a true actual context to better assess what's driving change in the market. So that's one of many examples of how do we make this really useful, democratize it for our customers, because once everybody's smarter, the integrity of the marketplace is that much better.
Love it, for sure.
And then in terms of your top clients, who would be like a typical avatar of who uses Bōde on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, great question. So we have about 50 builders across the country right now. A lot of them are large, high-scale production builders, both single-family and multifamily, that are rolling hundreds or thousands of units on a uh, annual basis. And then we also do have custom builders, small to medium-sized uh, players in that domain as well. Anything from luxury down to the call it the more commodity end of the spectrum. We quite a width there, and then yeah, property investors and owners are some of our highest frequency users for the reasons we talked about before. Just because they're looking to maximize that profit and take advantage of the platform. So it is really a blend of all of those providers. The production level guys, the big builders would be our biggest and most prevalent customers, but we're starting to see the growth in the other segments as well. Did I capture that, Jeremy, or anything else you want to add there?
No, I think that pretty much touched on most of it. I think one of the things that we do, because of the way that our platform is, the architecture behind our platform and the way that our service is delivered, and again, the way that we try to break down the barriers of understanding and eliminate priorities so that they can remain in-house with our partners, whether they're builders, sellers, or investors, is we sort of level that playing field so that everybody has access to the same thing. It's very similar to what we were just talking about with opening up that information, making sure everybody has the same level of access to it so that it becomes more of a conversation. My goal, as you know, as we build out this data, the data offering that Bōde has, is we want to be answering questions before there are even questions. We just want to break down and provide as much possible information, because I've seen it. I've been in this world now for almost a decade, and I've seen multiple times where any number of stakeholders may look at a piece of data or a piece of information and with sort of a lens of, I'd never really thought of that. And then it ends up informing their next 12 steps because they just hadn't seen it before. And again, that goes back to our willingness, I think, is a large part of what it is, to do the work, to put that data together in a way that makes sense, and not, basically gatekeep anything that the market could benefit from. Whether you're a buyer, seller, investor, builder, whomever you happen to be in the market, we see value in a full understanding, or at least the ability to quickly and accurately investigate everything.
So our clients who are borrowing clients who are predominantly short-term real estate investors. These are people that are out there looking for, I refer to it as underutilized housing stock. And they're buying this up. They're typically renovating it, adding value. In a lot of instances, they're renovating it, adding density through additional units, basement suites, and otherwise. Walk us through how they could best utilize Bōde today.
Yeah, for our that example, very easy to simply go on platform, click start listing. You're able to list your property in about 8 minutes just by going through and answering the questions about location, beds, baths, specifications, property description. We take care of professional photos and measurements for you. And then upon submitting that listing, we syndicate it to Realtor.ca, Zillow, and all the other sites that are connected to it. So you get maximum exposure for that buyer. If it is a early phase construction site, it's a pre-sale. We'll also do AI-based renderings, so we can turn renderings from black lines around in same day to bring in as many buyers as early as possible to de-risk that renovation, or in that case, a tear down that you might be throwing a fourplex up from a bungalow tear down, for example. And then you're set up with our homeowner dashboard where buyers, when they contact you, you'll get a notification. You'll set up your showing times, make that all available to buyers to pre-understand how and what is available from a booking perspective. And then that buyer can also make offers directly on platform to you. That again is all set up on a term by term basis. You get the instant notification when that happens, and then you're able to, on a condition by condition basis, negotiate through to agreement. We then auto populate a standard industry standard contract, and then it guides you all the way through to closing, where we have Deeded as a partner of ours, providing digital closings that are 30 to 40% less money as well at the end, to create a start to finish fully digital experience. So that's the, call it on a one-off basis, how it works. And then of course, if you're doing 3, 5, 10, 20, and you've got a team, that now turns into a more enterprise service where we can take care of a number of those points for you with the team and automation that we have. But that's all up for discussion.
Awesome. And using another example, say if I'm a real estate investor and I'm looking to purchase in a new market, is there any data and insights of how I could best use the data on Bōde to help drive, looking at, to your point, property types that could be a good investment to flip, or any insights in that regard to do market research to see if I should invest in that market?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly a big part of what we've built, not only available on platform, but also in bespoke reports, where you basically say, what are the biggest opportunities by quadrant of the city, and then zoom in by the community level, and then zoom in on property type. So you have a sense of exactly what your play should be. If you've already decided that you're planning to build townhomes, for example, you can simply synthesize the data that way. There's all the different ways to cut it, but that's ultimately, from a overall value understanding standpoint, I think historically we've had, like we talked about a little bit earlier, where does all this actually fit? Where's the information available at a local, regional, community level? And so that's what we deliver to you, not only to decide what property to buy, but then now once you own it, how much can you sell it for? And where are the next opportunities? So it's the overall inventory strategy becomes a big benchmark for that.
I think not unlike most data set, the earlier you engage with data, the better for your business. So if you're an investor and you say, I have this much capital I'm looking to deploy into the market, and then you start asking data questions about where's the best place for me to deploy this capital. If your priority is quick closing, I want this in the market now. If you're looking at resale, growth, investment, long term, how long you're going to be flipping, you ask that question if that's your priority. So again, the quicker and the earlier you engage with the data and start to ask the data the questions, the more beneficial it is for your business.
And a big part of once you're listed with us, where we end up is both self-represented buyers and represented buyers are able to take action on platforms. Now you're getting the full market feedback on your data or on the value of your property ultimately. And of course, if you have a buyer without a buy side agent, there's no buy side commissions paid in that example. So we encourage our sellers to invite both segments of the market through offering buy side commissions. And then if a self-represented buyer shows up and doesn't have a represented or doesn't have representation, then of course there is no cost on that side. So that's the other part of the market connection, as well as the profitability opportunity for sellers.
And that goes back to what I was saying. I think I broke up earlier while I was talking about it, but it really, what we're doing is we're allowing anybody in the market to speak to the entire market. So because we're agnostic about, we're not anti-realtor. We're not at all. We partner with realtors all the time. To Rob's point, realtors have sold their homes on our platform. What we do is we allow, if you're a seller, we allow you to speak to the people who would rather take the reins on that transaction themselves. If you're an investor, you're speaking to people who would have the same opinion on selling a property into the market. So, I say all the time, there's a difference between selling a house and your house. So if you're an investor, your emotions are not as tied up in it as mine would be if I was selling the home that I live in now. So we allow you to focus on what's important to you, which is the transaction, if that's what's most important to you. If it's, at the end of the day, everybody wants to keep as much money out of a transaction as possible. So we help to do that as well. But the intelligence insights that we provide, again, if you're a builder, we're beneficial at everywhere from land acquisition to closeout to inventory. If you're an investor, like I said, if you've got capital to employ, as soon as you determine what that capital is, start asking questions about where that money should be put.
Perfect. Awesome. So today the solution is available in Alberta, throughout Alberta?
Yep, across Alberta, across British Columbia, and in the beautiful GTA as of the last 9 months to a year. Yep.
And then in terms of where Bōde is going with its service, what does it look like in a year from now? What does it look like in? I think going too far into the future is not a fair question for a tech entrepreneur today. But let's say a year from now, and maybe 3 years from now.
Yeah, I would say in the next year, we're going to further automate our platform. So all these steps will continue to make even faster and even easier. The level of data insight is going to go up exponentially, although we already have, we would say, awesome data tools are used regularly by all of our customers. The opportunity there is immense. And we have goals to move and expand to the US. We have a number of builder customers that are also have big positions in the United States and are interested in our services there. So in the next, I would say, year to 2 years, not to answer halfway into your time frame, that's, I think, the American opportunity is significant. It's very similarly structured to Canada. There's a similar number of, there's state level legislation. There's a similar number of agents. The competitive landscape is similar. It's just 10 times the size of the market. And in Canada, we have a big market, but that's, an order of magnitude bigger there as well. So just seeing similar opportunities to provide value to the market there, and then looking at further other ways that we can enhance a transaction. For example, an auction feature where you can list and sell your property fully on platform through a transparent bidding system. That's been a request from a number of our customers. So there are a number of different ways, different styles where technology is powerful to deliver that kind of experience, depending on what you want to do as a homeowner. And that at the end of the day is providing that choice back to people, so that they've got the style and the approach that makes sense to them. So I mentioned earlier, we are venture funded. We are in this business to make a true impact in the sector and elevate the industry. So we have big goals, and we're off to a really good start. But more work to do, of course, always is.
Awesome. And I'll go one more question and give Dave a few. Today, what are some of the bigger challenges you guys are working through?
Yeah, good question. I think for one part, it's doing more of these. It's having more people understand what's possible, understand that Bōde is available. The industry has been operating in a similar way for a long time, so an option like this that's truly transformational and totally different. It takes some time to have people understand it in a way that instills confidence for them to take full advantage of what we bring to the table. So I'd say that's one key thing. I think also the regulations are under a lot of pressure to change, not only in the United States, but also in Canada. There's class action lawsuits against the regulators looking for a more streamlined way, a more transparent way to buy and sell property. So I expect that already money has already been paid and change is already happening in the United States and Canada. Expect similar outcomes here because the industry is so similar at the regulatory level. So having people really understand the options and thinking differently, given there's been very little change, very little evolution in the real estate domain for many decades. I think that's a key challenge of ours. But when we do have customers, they absolutely love it. Our NPS score is really high. Our customer satisfaction is always extremely high. So it's having more people believe that they can take advantage of the platform this way.
Yeah, and then so you referenced the class action lawsuit that was recently, I guess a verdict was handed down in the States. For listeners who aren't aware, that like what happened there, and I think there's through that it will be a catalyst for change. Particularly, I see it as on the sell side, but I'd love to hear how you guys are seeing that, because I think it really opens opportunities for a platform like Bōde.
Yeah, and in the main plaintiff claim is that prices are fixed. You're not able to negotiate commissions. Commissions are very high, and buy side agents are free. So there's those misconceptions in the market, and so 2.2 billion has been paid out so far to those claims in the States, and the changes that are happening south of the border are, number one, you can no longer describe the amount of commission that's available to the buy side agent in the system. So that no longer creates a attachment of that buy side agent in a systemic way to your property. They need to contact you directly. So that's one change. The second big change is buy side representation has to be agreed to before the first showing, just to create a more clear relationship between the buyer and the buy side agent. Commissions are still paid by the seller structurally. That hasn't changed, but these are steps towards the separation of payments from the seller paying the sell side agent and the buyer paying the buy side agent directly. So that could be an outcome of this. There's a number of litigations that are still rolling through. Some of them have been awarded, others are still under discussion. And in Canada, we're just 6 months behind, but with very similar challenges to the regulators. So I expect that there will be some change in how payments are made, how they're communicated, and ultimately the goal here is, for homeowners that are under this pressure of affordability, of inflation. How do we create a marketplace that's more efficient ultimately? And so we're passionate about that, and homeowners seem to be equally passionate about that. And now it's on the regulators to evolve rules in a way that makes it more open for everybody to take advantage of what's available in terms of alternative models.
So net outcome there, it should be, again, creating transparency, but also allowing the market to dictate both buy and sell, which today we just don't have. At least in Canada, it's essentially dictated at board level. I find it to be dictated based off of region, like they just have standard, I'll call it commission structures, and it is the buyer and seller just agree to that, whether directly or indirectly. But these changes should allow for more transparency and the free market to dictate.
I think it's worth noting as well that by virtue of being licensed, Bōde is licensed, we operate within the regulatory framework that all agents and brokers operate in. So the ability to operate in a different way is there. It's whether or not that's going to have to be put in foundationally, or whether or not the industry will just change it and move toward where we all think it's heading. So again, we're not, we haven't broken a mold within the regulatory framework. We've just chosen to operate in a specific way that the current regulatory framework allows for. It's just how many and how do you get the others to do the same thing? And by doing that, to your point, letting the market have more control over what's happening.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think if you put together, the regulations evolve to understand that this is now a digital network, it's a digital market, you look at the world differently. And I think they'll get there. There's lots of great people in real estate, lots of well-intentioned people, but it's one of those industries that we all know has lagged in terms of evolving. And we're seeing that happen right in front of our eyes with these regulatory pressures that are happening, because homeowners say, I want that transparency, I want control, I want options for better rates or lower rates. Doesn't mean that our service is better or not to other more traditional services. But it is an option. If you take the Uber example, Uber provided a different experience to taxis. And everybody thought when Uber came in that taxis were going to go away. Well, in reality, they haven't. If anything, the market size has gone up by 30 to 40% for transportation, because you just now have more choice. There's more available options, which benefits the consumer. And then now Uber is going back and selling their technology to taxis. And so now taxi services are getting better and modernized. And that really is paralleling the way that we're looking at it, which is we can provide an alternative approach here and work directly with taxis at the same time, because they can benefit from a company that's focused on tech and data as opposed to, the human resources involved in transacting a property. So we have had a number of brokerages come to us saying, we love your technology. Can we license it? Can we white label it? Is it available? And we will make it available. So those are active conversations as well. So fascinating time in the space for sure.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. I'm so looking forward to bringing on some, I'll call it forward-thinking realtors, because if you're not, like, the industry as a whole is going to change significantly, and really curious to see their views on how it's going to change and how we're going to adapt to it, whether it be the realtor industry or the buying and selling as a whole. But it is exciting times, and it will only benefit the consumer and in turn the market.
Yeah, and I think there are a high volume of forward-thinking realtors. They just don't have an opportunity to change as quickly as some of them I think would want to. It's to Rob's Uber point. I still pay somebody to drive me from the airport to my house every time I fly back home. I just do it in a way that I'm more comfortable with. And that's all we're talking about. I see lots of people getting into a cab. I happen to get into an Uber. It's not one or the other. It's just both, whatever happens to work for you. And again, with the realtors, I think the realtors that we work with and the realtors that we speak to, whether they're partners of our enterprise clients or individual realtors, look at us and say, well, yeah, why would we not? This just makes sense, because we're not stopping them from operating. We're allowing them to operate differently. That's all we're doing.
Love it. I love hearing stories of when you were first starting out, some of the challenges that you overcame. I've had some really good stories on the podcast in the past of entrepreneurs first starting out and some of the challenges involved and some of the wild stories of what you had to overcome. Does anything come to mind, either in the first year or two, or could be something recent of a challenge that you overcame at Bōde?
Well, I think we when we first launched, there's an old adage. Well, maybe it's not that old, but it's for as it relates to tech entrepreneurs. If you're not embarrassed going to market, you waited too long. So, because we're all perfectionists, right? We're all passionate about what we have and what we're building. So you have the mentality when you're looking at it internally before you launch the product, saying, "Oh, we got to fix that. We got to fix that. We got to make that better." And if you're not careful, you can end up in a 3-year cycle where it takes you forever to get to market, and then the whole opportunities passed you by because you've taken too long and blown a bunch of money. So we aggressively took the other approach and got to market in 6 months. Very embarrassed with our first with our first product in the market, and we were all nervous about it, and but wanted to get it in so that we had customer feedback that was truly driving our change, as opposed to our own internal echo chamber about what we thought people would want. Let's have customers actually drive our innovation. And so that was actually, a scary time, but at the same time ended up being really awesome because people quite quickly really loved the product, found a lot of problems with it. Of course, we were able to fix those problems iteratively until we knew we had product market fit that was really scalable and really growing, and that's where we are today. But yeah, those first 6 months were definitely pretty scary. And then I would say one of my favorite stories is a homeowner in Cochrane, Alberta, just west of Calgary, in her 70s, with MS and an iPhone 7, able to sell her property in with no laptop, no other tools, able to sell her property in 2 weeks, all with just her old iPhone, and hit her numbers and save a bunch of money. So that was an epiphany for us, saying if that's possible with that with that blend of persona and technology, we're feeling pretty good about what we've built. So that was one of the cooler stories for sure for us and in our Hall of Fame.
Very cool.
I love that insight on the go-to-market approach, and at what stage, and you're gonna have egg on your face regardless, but how to do it. Like, I recently was looking at the Apple VR headset, where it's far from what it will be, but they went to market strategically through, I'll call it like, the people that have beta are these people far ahead as it relates to adapting tech, and they were able to do that because they have this crazy balance sheet. But very few companies have a balance sheet. Nobody, I don't think, has a balance sheet like Apple's. Whereas, like, I think it was predominantly Apple engineers who launched this wearable AI piece, and the bulk of the reviews are essentially it's the worst device ever invented. But you had these incredibly smart, well-capitalized people going to market with this. Could they have launched beta a bit differently? Possibly, but at some point you have to go to market to get the feedback, to get some traction, to create some sort of hype, ideally some sort of revenue, to start iterating on, telling that story to your shareholders and and building out the company that it's going to be. I think it's more so, how you iterate and how you change is more so the success than how you go to market.
Yeah, I think if you look for perfection before you launch something, to Rob's point, if you want absolutely everything pearled up with a bow on it before you go to market, not only is somebody else going to launch before you, but I think that the companies that do that with an assumption that they are done, that they've made the decisions and that they have all the information that they have. If you are willing to do what Bōde does, which is apply constant discovery. So a big part of our job is to continually speak with our partners and learn from the market and the people that we're talking to. So even if we took it off the drawing board and we were fully satisfied with the product and not in a position where we intended to be embarrassed, we would still be iterating that product because we apply constant discovery. We are always asking our partners, what would you like to see us do more of? What would you like to see us do less of? And so we're always going to be ebbing and flowing these products, whether or not internally we all look around, give each other a big high five and go, this is perfect. We know it's going to change, so, which opens us up and frees us up to launch product when the timing is right, as opposed to the product being 100% right.
Brilliant. I think we're running quite long on time.
Yeah.
Ryan, I got a couple last things to say. Ryan, do you have any more questions?
No, I think we touched on everything. Anything we didn't touch on that you think is worth mentioning?
No, I think we hit all the marks. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it, boys.
Certainly for our listeners, where our goal is to provide as much information, education as possible. I think an ideal future segment will be, literally screen sharing and walking real estate investors and potential users through what Bōde looks like and how they can benefit from your solution. So after this, we'll start planning there. What I heard a lot of is in the enterprise instance, there's some ability to customize and report, and certainly that's going to have interest on how some of the more higher volume real estate investors can leverage that. So we'll absolutely bring you guys on for some future episodes and be able to provide even greater value to the listeners. How do people get a hold of you?
Anybody wants to hit us up, we're on all the social handles, and Jeremy is the guy, Jeremy at bodecanada.com. Dangerous to throw your email out into the public, but he's the guy that heads up the enterprise space. So
what could possibly go wrong?
Be the best guy to connect with. And yeah, happy to do a product demo with anybody. We're no longer embarrassed about our product. We're quite proud of it. So happy to turn that on anytime.
So punch in BODE, maybe
.ca,
to your
that'll
favorite
get you the
search
site.
engine, to your favorite social media network.
There we go.
You got it.
That'll do
Perfect. Awesome. Appreciate the time, guys. Great chatting, and looking forward to catching up for interview 2 and do a screen share in the future.
Yeah, all the best with your continued success.
All right. Cheers guys.
Great. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Ryan.
That wraps up another episode of the Real Estate and Wealth Podcast. Be sure to hit that like button, share with fellow real estate enthusiasts, and subscribe to stay in the loop on all upcoming episodes. Get in touch with the team at Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation by calling them at 1-888-752-4642 or email admin@chmic.ca. The opinions expressed in each episode belong to the individuals featured and do not represent the views of Calvert Home Mortgage. While we provide valuable insights, consulting with qualified professionals ensures that your unique financial circumstances are carefully considered, aligning your investments with your long-term objectives. Calvert Home Mortgage Investment Corporation is not a financial advisor, and we cannot advise you on making investments. There are risks to investing in real estate and the potential that you can lose all of your investment.